Ogie Diaz says SB19 changed. He says they stopped doing shoutouts. He says fame got to them. But what if he's completely wrong? What if this isn't about ego, but strategy? What if this isn't about attitude, but evolution? Because in the music industry, nothing changes without a reason. And when artists move differently, it's usually because the business demands it. Tonight, we break down the real reason SB19 stopped doing shoutouts. Like, share, subscribe. Let's get into it. When Ogie Diaz suggested that SB19 no longer does shoutouts the way they used to, the implication wasn't loud, but it was loaded. The tone wasn't openly hostile. It was observational, reflective, almost disappointed. And that subtle disappointment carried weight. Because in entertainment commentary, you don't need to accuse directly. You just need to plant the idea that they changed. And that phrase? It's explosive. Public reactions split instantly. Some nodded in agreement, saying fame creates distance. Others rushed to defend SB19, arguing growth should not be mistaken for arrogance. Within hours, the conversation wasn't about shoutouts anymore. It was about character. Here's why it went viral. Accessibility is emotional currency. Fans remember the early days, the reposts, the direct mentions, the feeling of being seen. So when that visibility becomes selective or structured, it feels personal. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Accessibility is often mistaken for humility. An artist being constantly reachable is not the same as being grounded. And when reach evolves into restraint, people interpret strategy as superiority. Ogie's comment didn't attack SB19, it questioned a shift. But in a fan-driven ecosystem, questioning proximity feels like questioning loyalty. And that's why this small observation turned into a national conversation. Why fans expect artists to stay the same. In the early days of SB19, everything felt raw, close, personal. They were grinding, responding, reposting, building not just a fan base, but a community. Supporters weren't just watching the rise. They were part of it. That intimacy created something powerful, emotional ownership. And that's where the illusion begins. Parasocial relationships, the one-sided bonds fans form with public figures, feel real, deep, mutual. When artists are in their hustle phase, accessibility is high. They reply, they acknowledge, they amplify supporters. It feels like friendship, even if it isn't. So when growth happens, and that accessibility becomes filtered, structured, or rare, it feels like abandonment. But here's the reality. Fans fall in love with a chapter. Artists are writing a whole book. The grind phase is different from the empire phase. Early SB19 had time to personally engage because scale was manageable. Today, every word carries brand value, legal weight, and international impact. What feels like emotional distance is often operational expansion. Growth changes logistics, not loyalty. Yet because fans invested emotionally during the early struggle, evolution can feel like betrayal, even when it's simply business maturity. And that tension between nostalgia and necessary growth is where this entire debate truly lives. Here's what casual viewers don't realize. At a certain level in the industry, there is no such thing as a simple shout-out. In the early years, artists move freely. They tag friends, they repost supporters, they amplify creators. But once an act enters higher-tier management structures, every public mention passes through invisible filters: legal, branding, contractual. Because a shout-out is not just kindness, it's endorsement. Management protocols at advanced levels require risk assessment. What if the person mentioned later becomes controversial? What if the brand conflicts with an existing partnership? What if the casual acknowledgement is interpreted as formal collaboration? In a global expansion phase, PR teams minimize unpredictability. And then there's endorsement alignment. If an artist is signed to a major brand, promoting another product, even unintentionally, can violate exclusivity clauses. One spontaneous Instagram story can cost millions in contractual leverage. Add media training evolution. As artists grow, they are coached to protect positioning, avoid legal ambiguity, and preserve brand equity. Here's the industry truth. Once artists cross a certain level, every public mention becomes a strategic decision. What fans see as distance may simply be discipline. At scale, generosity becomes calculated. Not because artists stopped caring, but because the stakes became exponentially higher. SB19 is no longer operating as local rising idols. They are functioning as global representatives of Filipino music. And that shift changes everything. Scaling is not emotional, it's structural. When artists expand internationally, schedules compress, media appearances multiply, brand negotiations intensify, creative sessions stretch across time zones. What once allowed spontaneous engagement now requires calendar clearance. Time becomes the rarest asset. In 2025-2026, elite-level acts aren't just rehearsing and recording. They're navigating partnerships, international collaborations, global PR cycles, content strategies, and cross-market positioning. Every move aligns with a bigger blueprint, and alignment reduces improvisation. At local level, community interaction drives growth. At global level, brand consistency drives longevity. That means messaging is tighter, engagement is curated, visibility is intentional. The shift isn't from warmth to coldness. It's from accessibility to architecture. They've transitioned from community artists to industry leaders. And leaders operate differently because the ecosystem around them is bigger, heavier, more complex. Here's the power line that most people don't want to admit. Growth reduces spontaneity. That's not arrogance, that's scaling. When the stage gets larger, the margin for randomness gets smaller. And that's not ego, that's evolution under pressure. At the global level, reputation isn't just image, it's infrastructure. When artists expand beyond local markets, every word travels further, faster, and with less context. That's why global acts rarely give random shoutouts. It's not because they don't want to uplift others. It's because unpredictability becomes risk. Naming a creator, brand, or personality publicly can carry legal implications. Is it an endorsement? A partnership hint? A paid collaboration? If contracts exist elsewhere, even casual mentions can trigger conflict clauses. International entertainment law is not sentimental. It's precise. Then comes cultural sensitivity. What's harmless locally can be controversial internationally. A simple shout-out might be clipped, translated, reframed, and redistributed in ways that shift its meaning entirely. And that's the real danger: media clipping. In the global arena, a 5-second comment becomes a headline. A headline becomes a narrative. A narrative becomes reputation. Protecting SB19's brand internationally requires discipline. It requires minimizing variables. It requires controlling the message. Because once you're representing not just yourselves, but an entire national music movement, you don't move casually anymore. Here's the high-level insight most people overlook. At international scale, casual comments become headlines. And when the world is watching, precision replaces spontaneity. That's not distance. That's protection. Let's address the part nobody likes to say out loud. Attention is not just engagement, it's currency. In today's entertainment economy, visibility has measurable value. A single mention from a top-tier act can spike sales, boost streams, or elevate a creator overnight. That kind of impact isn't accidental, it's monetizable. At elite levels, promotional equity is negotiated. Brands pay for placement. Partnerships are structured. Campaigns are mapped months in advance. So when an artist gives free promotion through a spontaneous shout-out, it can quietly undermine existing commercial agreements. It's not about greed, it's about leverage. If an artist casually promotes something today, why would a brand pay tomorrow? Maintaining value requires discipline. Every public mention either builds equity or dilutes it. And then there's perception. If shout-outs become frequent and unrestricted, exclusivity fades. Scarcity disappears. Influence weakens. Elite artists protect their brand value the way companies protect stock prices. because in modern entertainment, influence is an asset class. Here's the viral truth. When attention becomes currency, you don't give it away casually. Not because you stopped supporting people, but because you understand the market value of your voice. And once you understand that value, you move differently. The easiest storyline to sell is ego. An artist grows, their behavior changes, access becomes limited. And suddenly, the narrative writes itself. They let fame get to them. But boundaries and arrogance are not the same thing. Arrogance elevates the self above others. Boundaries protect the self from overexposure. One is rooted in superiority, the other in sustainability. Elite artists understand something most rising acts don't. Longevity requires emotional discipline. You cannot respond to everything. You cannot amplify everyone. You cannot be available at all times without burning out or diluting brand clarity. What fans interpret as coldness is often strategic detachment, a necessary separation between personal emotion and public presence. Look globally. Taylor Swift no longer casually boosts random creators. BTS operates within strict media structures. Beyoncé hasn't done spontaneous public shoutouts in years. Did they become arrogant? Or did they evolve into institutions? Success expands stakes. Higher stakes require tighter control. Here's the quote-level truth. Boundaries are not ego, they're insurance. Insurance against controversy, against exploitation, against burnout, against brand erosion. Evolution always looks like distance from the outside, but from the inside it looks like survival. And survival at the top demands discipline, not constant display. There's another layer most people won't admit. Filipino artists are expected to stay permanently accessible. No matter how big they get, there's cultural pressure to remain approachable, humble, reachable, almost neighborly. It's part of our social fabric. We value closeness. We value relatability. We celebrate artists who feel like family. But here's the tension. Once an artist crosses into global territory, the rules shift, yet expectations don't. Western superstars operate with visible distance. K-pop idols function within carefully structured PR systems. Their boundaries are understood as professionalism. But when Filipino artists adopt similar structures, it's interpreted as change, as pride, as forgetting where they came from. That's the double standard. We applaud global recognition. We want international respect. But we still expect local-level intimacy, and that creates the success penalty effect. The bigger you get, the more scrutiny you face for evolving. SB19 isn't just navigating fame. They're navigating cultural expectations layered on top of international expansion. Insight. They are a brand institution representing Filipino music on global platforms. And institutions don't move impulsively, they move strategically. When you transition from group to global act, alignment becomes everything. Every appearance, every collaboration, every public mention must fit a long-term blueprint. That blueprint isn't about today's applause. It's about decade-long positioning. Empire building requires architecture. Global alignment strategy means consistency across markets. It means protecting image equity. It means understanding that influence is a limited resource that must be deployed intentionally. What looks like reduced spontaneity is actually increased structure. And structure is the language of elevation. They didn't stop uplifting people. They didn't stop valuing supporters. They simply stepped into a different tier of responsibility. Here's the defining statement. They didn't stop caring. They started operating at scale. Scale demands discipline. Scale demands filtering. Scale demands foresight. And when artists begin thinking like institutions, it's not distance, it's dominance in development. Let's end this correctly. Ogie Diaz isn't wrong for observing change. Change is visible. Fans feel it. Conversations happen because connection matters. And acknowledging that shift is part of honest commentary. But observation without context can distort reality. Yes, SB19 evolved. Yes, their public behavior adjusted. But evolution in entertainment is rarely emotional. It's operational. Growth forces recalibration, expansion forces control, visibility forces caution. Discomfort during growth is normal, especially for fans who walked through the early chapters. Nostalgia creates comparison. Comparison creates perception. But perception isn't always the full picture. The bigger picture is this. SB19 is navigating global waters with higher stakes, tighter contracts, larger influence, and greater responsibility. That demands boundaries. That demands structure. That demands strategy. It's not about losing humility. It's about protecting longevity. Here's the closing truth. The moment you think they changed might be the moment they leveled up. Not because they left people behind, but because the stage got bigger. And when the stage gets bigger, the moves get smarter. That's not ego. That's evolution.